In the Grand Symphony Hall of Boston, 15-year-old Amara Jones, a blind black girl with a quiet strength, steps onto a stage meant for legends. But when a famous pianist, Charles Whitaker, mocks her, shouting she'll ruin the piano, the air turns cold with prejudice. Amara's fingers hover over the keys, trembling yet defiant, as a single note pierces the silence, hinting at a talent the world isn't ready for. Will her music shatter the barriers of a cruel elite, or will she be silenced by those who fear her light? As whispers of sabotage swirl, one question burns. Can a girl with no sight make the world truly see? Stick with us to uncover Amara's journey. The velvet curtains of Symphony Hall for stories that spark your heart, Massachusetts Avenue, Boston, hung heavy with history, their deep red folds catching the glow of crystal chandeliers. On this chilly April evening in 2025, the air buzzed with anticipation for the Global Harmony Gala rehearsal, a prestigious event drawing the elite of the classical music world. Sponsors in tailored tuxedos and glittering gowns murmured in the orchestra seats, their voices a low hum beneath the clink of champagne flutes. Musicians tuned violins and adjusted sheet music, their movements precise, almost reverent. But as the stage lights flared, casting sharp shadows across the polished wood, a different kind of tension gripped the room. Amara Jones, a 15-year-old black girl, stepped from the wings. Her slender frame, draped in a plain black dress, seemed to shrink under the spotlight. Her white cane tapped softly, guiding her across the stage, each step a quiet defiance against the eyes boring into her. Blind since birth, raised in Hartford's foster homes, Amara carried no pedigree, no agent, no introduction. Yet here she was, invited through a last-minute slot to play the Steinway & Sons D274, a $200,000 instrument reserved for the world's finest. Her fingers twitched, sensing the stage's vibrations, the creak of floorboards, the rustle of programs, her world built on sound and touch. "Who let her up there?" a voice boomed, slicing through the hall like a blade. Charles Whitaker, a 50-year-old pianist with a silver mane and a reputation as cold as his virtuosity, stood in the wings. His tailored suit gleamed under the lights, but his eyes were steel. "She's blind, black, and untrained. Get her off before she ruins the piano." The words landed like a slap, echoing off the hall's gilded walls. A sponsor in the front row shifted uncomfortably, his cufflinks glinting as he avoided Amara's direction. A young violinist, barely 20, clutched her bow, her admiration for Amara flickering in her gaze before she looked away, silenced by the room's weight. Amara froze, her cane stilling. The silence was deafening, thicker than any note she'd ever played. She felt the stares, not as light but as pressure, pressing against her skin. Charles's voice wasn't just cruel. It was a verdict, a dismissal rooted in a world that saw her as less before she'd even begun. Backstage, Lila Carter, a 25-year-old black stagehand with a quick smile and calloused hands, clenched her fists. She'd seen Charles's type before, men who wielded power like a baton. Earlier, she'd caught him loosening a key on the Steinway, his fingers slyly twisting the pin. "No one'll notice," he'd muttered, thinking himself alone. Lila had tightened it back, her heart pounding, knowing who he aimed to sabotage. "Keep going, girl," Lila whispered from the shadows, her voice barely audible but warm, like a hand on Amara's shoulder. Amara's cloudy eyes couldn't see Lila, but her ears caught the encouragement, a lifeline in the storm. She took a breath, her chest tight with a mix of fear and resolve. Charles's words stung, but they weren't new. She'd heard variations in foster homes, in school hallways, whispers that she didn't belong. Yet music had always been her answer, her way of speaking when words failed. She moved forward, her cane tapping a steady rhythm, and sat at the piano bench. The Steinway's polished surface was cool under her fingers, its weight grounding her. Charles scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain. "This isn't a charity show, kid. You're out of your depth." A few sponsors chuckled nervously, their laughter a betrayal. But Amara didn't flinch. Her hands hovered over the keys, feeling the faint hum of the strings beneath. She didn't need to see the notes. She heard them in her bones, melodies born from nights alone, from memories of a mother's lullaby she could barely recall. "Don't do it," Charles barked, stepping closer, his shadow looming. "You'll embarrass yourself. And us." The young violinist bit her lip, her fingers tightening around her bow, wanting to speak but held back by the room's unspoken rules. A sponsor, a middle-aged woman in a sapphire gown, whispered to her husband, "Maybe she shouldn't be here." The words were soft but sharp, cutting through Amara's resolve. Yet Lila's whisper echoed in her mind. "Keep going." Amara's fingers descended, striking a single note, a low G, haunting and clear. It rang out, not loud but piercing, like a cry held back too long. The note hung in the air, silencing Charles's sneer, the sponsor's murmurs, the violinist's doubts. It was more than sound. It was a declaration, a refusal to be erased. The hall seemed to hold its breath, the chandelier's light softening as if bowing to her. Lila grinned backstage, her eyes shining with pride. The violinist's bow loosened, her admiration now unguarded. Even the sponsor in the sapphire gown leaned forward, her skepticism wavering. Charles's face twisted, his sabotage thwarted, his authority challenged by a girl he'd deemed invisible. Amara sat still, her hands resting on the keys, her heart pounding. She hadn't played a full piece, not yet, but that single note was enough to shift the room's gravity. Would she crumble under the weight of their judgment, or would she play on, forcing the world to listen? As the rehearsal paused, the question lingered, unanswered, pulling everyone toward her next move. 2 years earlier, in the cold corridors of the Hart School in West Hartford, a younger Amara had faced a different kind of silence, one that taught her to listen deeper. The social services van rattled to a stop outside the Hart School at 200 Bloomfield Avenue, West Hartford, Connecticut, on a gray January afternoon in 2023. Snowflakes clung to the windshield, blurring the view of the prestigious music conservatory's brick facade where ivy seemed to guard secrets of the elite. Amara Jones, 13, stepped out, her thin frame shivering in a second-hand coat. Her white cane, cracked and taped together, tapped the icy pavement, mapping a world she couldn't see. Orphaned at 3, shuffled through Hartford's foster homes, Amara had no musical lineage, only a stubborn love for sound. Piano notes she'd heard on a neighbor's radio, melodies she traced in her mind. Admitted to the Hart School under the Quiet Listener program, she arrived with a faded suitcase and a flicker of hope, unaware the program was a token gesture, designed to exclude her from real training. The lobby smelled of polished wood and privilege, its high ceilings amplifying the chatter of students with private tutors and trust funds. Amara's cane drew stares, her blackness and blindness marking her as an outsider in a space where talent was measured by pedigree. "Who's that?" a voice sneered. Ethan Prescott, a 16-year-old with slicked-back hair and a violin case slung over his shoulder, leaned against a marble column. "Some charity case?" His friends snickered, their laughter sharp like broken glass. Amara's cheeks burned, but she kept her head high, her cane tapping a steady rhythm as she followed a staff member to a cramped dorm room, its walls thin enough to hear the world she wasn't allowed to join. The Quiet Listener program was a cruel misnomer. Amara was barred from classes, relegated to sitting outside lecture halls, her braille reader useless without sheet music. She learned by eavesdropping, her ears catching fragments of Chopin and Bach through closed doors. At night, in her dorm, she traced notes on her arm with a fingertip, memorizing scales by touch, her mind a silent orchestra. Her foster home, a crowded apartment 10 miles away, offered no refuge. Her foster mother, Ms. Clara, was kind but distracted, juggling 3 other kids. "You're tough, Amara," she'd say wearily, handing her a plate of macaroni. "Keep your head down." But Amara didn't want to hide. She wanted to play. One morning, in a dim hallway lined with practice rooms, Ethan's voice cut through her thoughts. "Watch it, stick girl," he mocked, deliberately stepping into her path. Amara stumbled, her cane clattering to the floor as Ethan's shoe caught her ankle. Pain shot through her leg, but before she could fall, a warm hand steadied her. "You okay, mija?" Maya Torres, a 30-year-old Latina janitor with tired eyes and a quick smile, knelt to retrieve the cane. Her mop leaned against the wall, forgotten. "Ignore that punk," Maya whispered fiercely, glaring at Ethan, who shrugged and sauntered off. Amara nodded, her throat tight. Maya's kindness was a rare warmth, like a note held just long enough to feel real. Maya became Amara's quiet ally. One evening, as the conservatory emptied, she slipped Amara a key to a basement practice room. "Old piano down there," Maya said softly. "Nobody uses it. Go make some noise." The room was musty, its upright piano out of tune, but to Amara, it was a sanctuary. Her fingers danced over the keys, coaxing out melodies she'd stolen from lectures, tentative at first, then bold. She didn't know Charles Whitaker, a guest lecturer, had overheard her one night. At 50, with a career built on acclaim and arrogance, Charles saw her raw talent as a threat. "She's unteachable," he told a professor, his voice smooth but venomous. "A distraction to serious students." The rumor spread, cementing Amara's isolation. Charles's words reached Ethan, fueling his cruelty. One afternoon, as Amara navigated a crowded hallway, Ethan tripped her again, his laugh cold. "Stay out of our way," he snapped, his friends echoing his scorn. Amara hit the floor, her cane skidding. Tears pricked her unseeing eyes, but Maya was there, helping her up. "You're stronger than them," Maya said firmly, brushing dust off Amara's coat. "Don't let 'em win." Amara clutched her cane, her resolve hardening. She returned to the basement that night, her fingers sketching a melody on her arm before playing it. A defiant, lilting tune inspired by Ms. Clara's hummed lullabies, a sound that felt like home. Upstairs, a student lingered outside a lecture hall. Jamal Reed, 16, a black violinist with a shy demeanor, had seen Amara's fall. He admired her persistence, the way she moved through their world unbothered by its rules. But fear of Ethan's clique kept him silent. As Amara played below, her notes drifting through the vents, Jamal paused, his bow hand still. Her music was raw, unpolished, but alive in a way his wasn't. He wanted to know her secret, but not yet. Amara's struggles at the Hart School were forging her, note by note. But it was a chance encounter, months later, that would change everything. A moment when a retired professor would hear her silent practice and see not a quiet listener, but a revolution waiting to begin. The basement of the Hart School at 200 Bloomfield Avenue, West Hartford, Connecticut, smelled of damp concrete and forgotten dreams. In late spring 2023, the practice room's flickering fluorescent light cast shadows over a battered upright piano, its keys yellowed but warm under Amara Jones's fingers. At 13, the blind black girl had carved out this hidden sanctuary, thanks to Maya Torres, the janitor who'd slipped her a key. Amara's white cane rested against the wall, her world narrowing to the vibrations of the strings as she played a halting melody, a lullaby her foster mother, Ms. Clara, used to hum. Each note was a rebellion against the quiet listener program that barred her from classes, a defiance of the whispers calling her unteachable. Outside Professor Daniel Brooks's lecture hall upstairs, Amara had lingered for weeks, her ears drinking in his lessons on jazz theory. Daniel, a 65-year-old black retired pianist, had a voice like worn leather, rich with stories of Harlem clubs and segregated stages. One evening, as students filed out, he heard a faint hum from the hallway. Amara sat against the wall, her fingers tapping a rhythm on her wrist, mimicking his lecture's chords. Daniel paused, his gray eyes softening. "Who's playing without a piano?" he called warmly, his cane, used for his bad knee, tapping closer. Amara froze, her heart racing. "Just listening, sir," she stammered nervously, expecting a reprimand, but Daniel chuckled, low and kind. "Listening's good, but music's a conversation. Come with me." He led her to the basement, his steps slow but sure. The room felt alive as Daniel sat beside her at the piano. "A chord's like a soul talking," he said, tapping a C minor on her wrist. "What's yours saying?" Amara hesitated, then played her lullaby, her fingers tentative but true. Daniel leaned back, his silence heavy with awe. "Girl, you're holding a whole world in those hands." Their mentorship began in secret, evenings stretching into nights. Daniel taught through stories, tales of Miles Davis's silences, Ella Fitzgerald's fire, while guiding Amara's hands to feel rhythms. "Jazz is freedom," he'd say intently, "but you gotta know the rules to break 'em." Amara soaked it up, her first composition emerging, a piano piece weaving her lullaby with a jazzy pulse, raw but bold. She confided her dream to compose music that made others feel seen, a dream Daniel understood. He'd been a prodigy once, sidelined by racism in the 1970s, his career reduced to teaching. "They tried to silence me," he told her quietly one night, his voice thick. "Don't let 'em do that to you." But trouble brewed above. Charles Whitaker, now a Hart board member, caught wind of Amara's sessions. His silver hair gleamed as he cornered Daniel in the faculty lounge, his tone icy. "You're wasting time on that girl," he said sharply, leaning close. "She's a liability. Stop, or your pension's at risk." Daniel's jaw tightened, his eyes blazing. "She's got more music in her than you'll ever know, Whitaker," he retorted defiantly, brushing past. Charles's face darkened. Late that night he slipped into the basement, locking the practice room door with a spare key, a smirk curling his lips. He thought he'd trapped Amara's progress, but Maya, mopping nearby, saw him. Her keys jangled as she unlocked the door before dawn, muttering, "Not on my watch." Amara arrived, unaware of the sabotage, and found Daniel waiting. "Play that piece again," he urged gently, sensing her nerves. She did, her melody stronger, filling the room with a warmth that chased the damp away. Jamal Reed, an 18-year-old black violinist, lingered outside, drawn by the sound. He'd watched Amara endure Ethan Prescott's taunts, admiring her grit but too shy to speak up. Her music stirred something in him, a longing to find his own voice. He clutched his violin case, torn between fear of Charles's influence and awe at Amara's courage. Their bond grew, Amara opening up about her foster home's chaos, her mother's lost lullaby. Daniel shared his own scars, club owners who'd barred him, critics who'd ignored him. "Music's how we fight back," he said firmly, tapping her wrist. "You're not just playing, you're surviving." Amara nodded, her cloudy eyes bright with purpose. She didn't know Charles's threats were escalating, his fear of her talent twisting into obsession. Daniel, undeterred, saw her potential as a spark in a world too long dimmed by prejudice. One evening, as Amara played her composition, Daniel leaned forward, his voice fierce. "You're not just a student, you're a revolution." The words sank into her, a promise and a challenge. She'd need that fire soon, for Daniel had a plan. To submit her for the Young Artist Showcase, a stage where she could prove herself. But Charles's shadow loomed, his next move waiting to strike. Months later, in a neglected recital room, Amara would face a test not of notes, but of heart. A test that would echo far beyond the Hart School's walls. The neglected recital room at the Hart School, 200 Bloomfield Avenue, West Hartford, Connecticut, felt like a forgotten corner of the conservatory. On a crisp October morning in 2024, dust motes danced in the weak sunlight filtering through cracked windows, and the old upright piano stood slightly off-center, its keys worn from years of hopeful hands. Amara Jones, now 14, sat on the bench, her fingers trembling as she ran through Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. Her white cane leaned against the wall, a silent witness to her months of preparation under Professor Daniel Brooks's mentorship. The Young Artist Showcase audition was her chance to prove she belonged, to silence the whispers of unteachable that haunted her. But nerves gnawed at her, her heart pounding like a metronome set too fast. Daniel had submitted her name despite the faculty's skepticism, his faith in her unshaken. "You're ready, Amara," he'd said warmly the night before, tapping a rhythm on her wrist. "Play like it's just you and the music." She'd practiced tirelessly in the basement, memorizing every note, her blindness no barrier to the melody's flow. Now, in the recital room, she adjusted the Braille score on the stand, more for comfort than need. The judge's table loomed ahead, its presence heavy in her sensory world. 3 sets of footsteps, the rustle of papers, and a familiar voice that made her stomach twist. Charles Whitaker. Charles, a Hart board member and judge, sat at the table, his silver hair gleaming under the fluorescent lights. His smile was thin, predatory, as he shuffled the scores. He'd swapped Amara's Chopin with a mismatched Mozart sonata, a sabotage meant to trip her up. "Next, Amara Jones," he announced coolly, his tone dripping with false courtesy. The other judges, a stern older woman, Professor Elaine Carter, and a younger man, Dr. Michael Lee, nodded, unaware of his scheme. Amara rose, her cane tapping softly, and took her place at the piano. The room's silence was suffocating, broken only by the creak of a chair as Jamal Reed, the shy violinist who admired her, slipped in to watch from the back. "Begin," Elaine said briskly. Amara reached for the score, her fingers tracing the Braille. Her breath caught. The notes were wrong, a jumble of Mozart where Chopin should be. Panic flared, but she closed her eyes, her mind racing to Daniel's words. "Play like it's just you." She pushed the score aside, her hands finding the keys. Chopin's Nocturne poured out, flawless and soulful, each note a defiance of Charles's trap. The melody wove through the room, soft, then swelling, a story of longing and resilience. Dr. Lee leaned forward, his pen still, while Elaine's stern face softened. Jamal's eyes widened, his violin case forgotten at his feet. Charles's smirk faltered, his sabotage undone by Amara's memory, but his influence ran deeper. As Amara finished, the final note lingering, Elaine cleared her throat. "Thank you," she said curtly, her tone final. Dr. Lee hesitated, his voice gentle. "That was remarkable, but we have guidelines." Charles leaned back, his voice smooth. "Impressive, but inconsistent with the score provided." The rejection hit like a physical blow, no explanation given. Amara stood, her cane trembling in her grip, and left the room, the judge's whispers trailing her like shadows. Unseen, Maya Torres, the janitor who'd become Amara's ally, had slipped into the room's corner, her phone recording. She'd sensed Charles's hostility and wanted proof of Amara's talent. As Amara played, Maya's eyes shone with pride, her video capturing every note. That night, in her small apartment, Maya uploaded it to YouTube, titling it "Blind Girl Denied by Hart Plays Chopin Flawlessly." She texted Amara, her voice soft through the phone. "You were incredible, mija," she said fiercely. "They can't take that away." Amara, curled up in her foster home's narrow bed, managed a shaky, "Thanks, Maya." By morning, the video had 100 views, a spark in the digital void. Sarah Nguyen, a 28-year-old Vietnamese-American music blogger, stumbled across it on Twitter X. Her fingers flew over her keyboard, sharing it with hashtag Amara Jones. "This is talent the world needs to hear," she tweeted passionately, her followers amplifying the post. But Charles, lurking in the faculty lounge, wasn't done. He spread rumors to colleagues, his voice low and venomous. She cheated. Must have had help, he claimed, planting seeds of doubt. Elaine frowned, unconvinced, but the rumor took root among students like Ethan Prescott, who scoffed, "No way, she's that good." Amara sat in the basement practice room, her fingers idle on the piano. Daniel found her there, his cane tapping. "You played your truth," he said firmly, sitting beside her. "That's what matters." But Amara's voice cracked, her pain raw. "They didn't even listen, Professor?" Daniel's hand rested on her shoulder, his voice steady. "They will. You're not done yet." Jamal, passing by, overheard, his admiration for Amara growing. He wanted to speak, but fear held him back. The video's views climbed, a whisper of hope in Amara's darkness. Soon, a call from the Kennedy Center would change everything, pulling her from Hartford's shadows to a stage where her music could no longer be ignored. In the dim light of her foster home's cramped bedroom in Hartford, Connecticut, Amara Jones sat cross-legged on a sagging mattress, her phone buzzing relentlessly. It was November 2024, and the 15-year-old blind black girl was reeling from the young artist showcase Rejection. The sting of Charles Whitaker's sabotage, swapping her audition score, lingered like a bruise. But Maya Torres's YouTube video, "Blind Girl Denied" by Hart Plays Chopin Flawlessly, had exploded online, hitting 5 million views in a week. Amara's fingers traced her cane, her world of sound now drowned by notifications. She couldn't see the comments flooding in, praise, outrage, demands for justice, but she felt their weight, a mix of hope and fear. "This is crazy, Maya," Amara said shakily, her voice barely audible over the hum of the radiator. Maya, perched on a rickety chair, grinned, her phone glowing with the video's stats. "Crazy's good, mija," she replied fiercely. "They're seeing you now." Amara's foster home, a worn apartment on Albany Avenue, was no stranger to struggle, but fame was foreign. Her foster mother, Ms. Clara, poked her head in, her voice weary. "Keep it down, Amara. You're not a superstar yet." Amara nodded, her heart twisting. She wasn't sure she wanted to be. Online, the number Amara Jones hashtag trended on Twitter X, fueled by Sarah Nguyen, a 28-year-old Vietnamese-American music blogger. Sarah's posts, fiery and eloquent, called out the Hart School's discrimination. "This is systemic," she tweeted passionately, her 50,000 followers amplifying the message. Lucas Hayes, a 35-year-old disabled musician in a wheelchair, emailed Amara, his words warm. "Your Chopin hit me hard," he wrote, sharing his own battles with exclusion. "Keep playing." Amara, guided by Maya's voice reading the email, felt a spark of connection, but fame's glare left her dizzy, exposed. At the Hart School, the viral wave crashed hard. Students whispered in the polished halls at 200 Bloomfield Avenue, some inspired, others skeptical. Jamal Reed, the shy 18-year-old violinist, watched the video on his phone, his admiration for Amara deepening. He wanted to speak up, but feared Charles's wrath. In a tense board meeting, Charles, his silver hair gleaming, faced scrutiny. "The audition was fair," he insisted smoothly, his voice masking panic. "Her performance was inconsistent." Professor Elaine Carter, a judge, shifted uncomfortably, her doubt growing. Daniel Brooks, Amara's mentor, leaned forward, his tone sharp. "You know that's a lie, Whitaker," he said defiantly, earning nods from 2 board members. Charles's allies wavered, his grip slipping. Then came the call that changed everything. The Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., invited Amara to open the Harmony and Diversity Gala, a prestigious event celebrating inclusion. Daniel delivered the news in the basement practice room, his cane tapping with excitement. "This is your stage, Amara," he said proudly, his voice thick. "Show 'em what you've got." Amara's breath caught, her fingers brushing the piano keys. "What if I mess up?" she whispered nervously, her blindness amplifying the imagined spotlight. Daniel's hand found her shoulder. "You won't," he said firmly. "You're bigger than their doubts." But Charles wasn't done. Enraged by the Kennedy Center's invitation, he escalated his sabotage, anonymously leaking a doctored video to a music forum, claiming Amara's audition was edited. The grainy clip, subtly altered to exaggerate her pauses, spread on Twitter X, sowing doubt. "She's a fraud," one user posted, echoing Charles's earlier rumors. Ethan Prescott, the bullying student, smirked in the Hart cafeteria, showing the clip to friends. "Told you she's fake," he scoffed cruelly. Jamal, overhearing, clenched his fists, his silence a weight he couldn't shake. Sarah Nguyen caught the fake video fast. From her Brooklyn apartment, she analyzed the audio, her tech skills sharp. "This is manipulated," she tweeted urgently, posting a side-by-side comparison with Maya's original. Her Amara Jones thread went viral, rallying supporters. Lucas amplified it, his own followers, disabled artists, music fans, flooding the hashtag with praise. "Amara's real," Lucas posted, his tone earnest. "Don't let lies dim her light." The backlash against the doctored video turned the tide, with news outlets picking up the story. The Hart School issued a vague apology, citing procedural errors, but the damage to Charles's credibility grew. Amara, unaware of the online war, confided in Maya at the foster home. "Why do they care so much?" she asked quietly, her cane tapping the floor. Maya sighed, her voice soft. "Because you're showing them what's possible, Amara. That scares some folks." Amara nodded, her resolve hardening. The Kennedy Center's stage was a chance to speak through music, not words. Daniel's lessons echoed in her mind. Jazz was freedom, and she'd play free. In Washington, D.C., a rehearsal space awaited, where Amara would face her doubts and craft a piece to silence her critics. But first, she'd need to confront the fear that fame couldn't drown. A fear rooted in a past she could only feel, not see. In the cramped living room of her foster home on Albany Avenue, Hartford, Connecticut, Amara Jones sat at a rickety keyboard, her fingers tracing a melody that felt like a memory. It was early April 2025, and the 15-year-old blind black girl was composing an original piece for the Kennedy Center's Harmony and Diversity Gala at 2700 F Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. The viral video of her Chopin audition had thrust her into the spotlight, but doubt clung to her like damp air. Her white cane rested against the wall, its familiar weight grounding her as she wove piano notes with the ghostly echo of a flute, her mother's instrument, a sound she recalled from fleeting orphanage days. The gala was weeks away, and the pressure felt like a stage light she couldn't escape. "You're overthinking it, Amara," Kayla Brown, her 17-year-old foster sister, said playfully, sprawled on a threadbare couch. Kayla's braids swung as she leaned forward, her voice warm. "Just play what's in your heart. You got this." Amara's lips twitched, a half-smile breaking through her nerves. "Easy for you to say," she replied softly, her fingers faltering on a chord. "What if I freeze up there?" Kayla scoffed, her tone fierce. "You? Freeze? Girl, you played through Charles Whitaker's nonsense. You're unstoppable." Amara's laugh was shaky, but Kayla's faith was a spark in her darkness. A flashback pulled Amara back to age 5 in a Hartford orphanage, her small hands clutching a toy flute as a social worker hummed a lullaby. The flute's reedy sound had been her mother's, a fragment of a life lost to illness. Now, at the Kennedy Center's rehearsal space, Amara worked to blend that memory into her piece, Echoes of Silence. The room's high ceilings amplified every note, her cane tapping as she navigated to the Steinway. Professor Daniel Brooks sat nearby, his cane propped against a chair. "It's coming together," he said encouragingly, his voice rich with pride. "Let the flute sing through the piano. Tell your story." Amara nodded, her fingers steadier, but her heart whispered, "What if it's not enough?" Jamal Reed, the 18-year-old violinist, slipped into the rehearsal, his footsteps hesitant. Amara's music had inspired him to start composing, but he stayed in the shadows, too shy to approach. Her piece, raw and haunting, stirred his own dreams, yet he feared Charles's influence at the Hart School. Meanwhile, Charles, his reputation bruised by the viral backlash, plotted anew. From a D.C. hotel, he bribed a Kennedy Center technician with $500 to dim the stage lights during Amara's performance, hoping to unsettle her blindness. "Make it subtle," he hissed coldly, his eyes glinting. But Lila Carter, the 25-year-old stagehand from Symphony Hall, now working at the Kennedy Center, overheard the exchange. Her jaw tightened and she quietly reset the lighting board, muttering, "Not again, Whitaker." Back in Hartford, Amara confided in Maya Torres over a chipped mug of tea. The janitor's apartment was a haven, its walls lined with family photos. "Everyone's watching me," Amara said anxiously, her cane tapping the floor. "What if I let them down?" Maya leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "You're not playing for them, mija. You're playing for you, for that little girl who heard her mama's flute. They'll feel it." Amara's cloudy eyes glistened, her fear softening. Maya's words echoed Daniel's lessons. Music was her truth, not a performance for approval. At the Kennedy Center, Amara's rehearsals intensified. She spent hours refining echoes of silence, her fingers dancing between piano and a borrowed flute, the latter awkward but soulful. Daniel guided her, tapping rhythms on her wrist. "You're building a bridge," he said intently, "between your past and their hearts." But doubt lingered. One night, alone in the rehearsal space, Amara paused, her hands trembling. She remembered the Hart audition, Charles's swapped score, the judge's silence. "I can't fail again," she whispered desperately, her voice swallowed by the empty room. Her cane felt heavier, her blindness a spotlight on her fears. Jamal, watching from the doorway, clenched his violin case. Amara's vulnerability mirrored his own hesitation, pushing him closer to action. He sketched a violin part for her piece, dreaming of a duet but unsure if he'd dare propose it. Back in Hartford, Kayla taped Amara practicing, her voice bold. "This is going viral, sis," she teased, uploading a clip to Twitter X with hashtag Amara Jones. The post gained traction, fans cheering her resilience. Sarah Nguyen retweeted it, her caption fierce. "Amara's about to change the game." Lucas Hayes, the disabled musician, commented, "Can't wait to hear her live." Amara's resolve hardened. She returned to the Kennedy Center, her cane tapping with purpose. Daniel and Maya stood by her, their belief a shield against doubt. Lila's quiet intervention ensured the stage would shine. The gala loomed, a moment where Amara's music could drown out the noise of her critics. As she played her piece one last time, the notes felt like a promise, to herself, to her mother's memory, to a world watching. Soon, the Kennedy Center's concert hall would test her, not just as a musician, but as a voice for those who'd been silenced too long. The Kennedy Center Concert Hall at 2700 F Street, Northwest Washington, D.C., hummed with anticipation on a balmy May evening in 2025. Chandeliers cast a golden glow over the packed auditorium where diplomats, artists, and families filled the red velvet seats. Amara Jones, 15, stood backstage, her white cane steady in one hand, her heart racing. The blind black girl from Hartford's foster homes was about to open the Harmony and Diversity Gala with her original composition, Echoes of Silence. Her navy dress, a gift from Maya Torres, felt foreign against her skin, but the weight of her mother's flute, tucked in a case, grounded her. Doubt lingered from weeks of preparation, but Daniel Brooks's voice echoed, "You're building a bridge." "You ready, sis?" Kayla Brown whispered excitedly, her braids brushing Amara's shoulder. Amara nodded, her breath shallow. "I think so," she murmured nervously, gripping her cane. Jamal Reed, the 18-year-old violinist, approached, his voice tentative. "I wrote a violin part for your piece," he said shyly, his courage newfound. "Can I join you?" Amara's cloudy eyes widened, a smile breaking through. "Yeah, Jamal," she said warmly. "Let's do this." Their last-minute duet, a symbol of solidarity, felt like a promise kept. The stage lights, bright thanks to Lila Carter's quiet intervention against Charles Whitaker's sabotage, welcomed Amara and Jamal. Her cane tapped softly as she found the Steinway, its keys cool under her fingers. Jamal settled beside her, his violin poised. The audience hushed, a diplomat from Senegal adjusting his glasses, a young girl in the balcony leaning forward in awe. Amara began, her piano notes soft, weaving the lullaby of her foster mother with the reedy cry of her mother's flute, played through her hands. Jamal's violin joined, a soulful counterpoint, raw but true. Echoes of silence unfolded, a tapestry of loss and resilience, each note a defiance of the Hart School's rejection, Charles's cruelty, and her own fears. The music swelled, Amara's fingers dancing with the freedom Daniel had taught her, jazz's pulse, her story's heart. The audience leaned in, a collective breath held. The diplomat's eyes glistened, reflecting on his homeland's excluded voices. The girl in the balcony clutched her mother's hand, whispering, "She's amazing." A disabled artist in the front row, Lucas Hayes, nodded to Sarah Nguyen. Their number, Amara Jones' campaign, now a reality. The piece's climax, a haunting piano-flute blend, drew gasps, then silence, then tears. Amara's blindness made the stage her world, every vibration a guide, her music a language that needed no sight. Charles Whitaker, scheduled to perform next, watched from the wings, his face pale. The 50-year-old pianist, once a titan, felt small. Amara's authenticity, raw, unpolished, alive, exposed his own music's hollow sheen. A memory surfaced, his first recital at 20, driven by passion, not pride. He'd lost that, trading soul for status. His sabotage, loosened keys, swapped scores, doctored videos, had failed, yet her triumph cut deeper. He gripped his score, his knuckles white, unable to look away as Amara and Jamal ended, the final note lingering like a held breath. The hall erupted. Applause thundered, a standing ovation rippling from orchestra to balcony. Amara stood, her cane steady, Jamal at her side, their faces alight. Kayla rushed backstage, hugging Amara tightly. "Told you, sis," she laughed joyfully. Maya, in the audience, wiped tears, her phone recording for Twitter/X. Daniel, seated near the front, tapped his cane, his eyes shining. "That's my girl," he murmured proudly, his voice thick. Sarah tweeted live. Yigadaiker echoes, of silence trending with 10 million views by midnight, clips of the duet flooding social media. Lila, in the lighting booth, grinned, her work unseen but vital. Lucas wheeled forward, clapping fiercely, his email to Amara now a bond fulfilled. The diplomat approached a gala organizer, his voice earnest. "Her music, it's a call for inclusion," he said thoughtfully, sparking talk of global outreach. Charles, stepping toward the stage, paused. The applause wasn't for him. He saw Amara's silhouette, small but towering, and felt the weight of his own emptiness. For the first time, he was silent, his planned performance looming like an afterthought. Amara, guided offstage by Jamal, felt the vibrations of the crowd, a warmth she'd never known. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief. Jamal nodded, his shyness gone. "You led the way," he said softly, his violin case a badge of courage. Daniel met them, his embrace fierce. "You built that bridge," he said firmly, his eyes wet. The gala continued, but Amara's moment lingered, a beacon for those who'd been silenced. Yet fame's pull awaited, with offers from record labels and talk shows. Amara, still clutching her flute's case, sensed a choice ahead, a path of stardom or something truer. In Asheville's quiet mountains she'd find her answer, but for now, the Kennedy Center's echo held her victory, a prelude to a story only beginning. The glow of Washington, D.C.'s city lights faded behind Amara Jones as she sat in a modest hotel room near the Kennedy Center, her white cane leaning against a chair. It was late May 2025, days after her triumphant performance of Echoes of Silence at the Harmony in Diversity Gala. The 15-year-old blind black girl from Hartford's foster homes was now a sensation, her duet with Jamal Reed racking up 10 million views on Twitter X under Year's Echoes of Silence. Offers flooded in. Blue Note Records wanted a contract, talk shows begged for interviews, but Amara's heart felt heavy, fame a spotlight she didn't crave. Her fingers traced her mother's flute case, its worn leather a tether to her truth. "They're calling you a star, Amara," Kayla Brown said, her voice bright as she scrolled through her phone on the hotel bed. Amara's 17-year-old foster sister grinned, her braids swaying. "Ellen's people emailed again." Amara shook her head, her voice soft. "I don't want that, Kayla," she said earnestly. This was the prelude, not the story. Kayla paused, her eyes softening. "Then what's the story, sis?" she asked curiously. Amara's lips curved, her mind drifting to Asheville's Blue Ridge Mountains, a quiet place Daniel Brooks had described, far from cameras, close to her music. In a D.C. coffee shop, Amara met Daniel, her 65-year-old mentor, to discuss her future. His cane tapped the floor, his voice warm but firm. "You've got choices now," he said thoughtfully, sipping coffee. "But fame can drown out your voice if you let it." Amara nodded, her fingers fidgeting. "I just want to make music that means something," she said quietly, her blindness amplifying the noise of expectations. Daniel leaned forward, his tone steady. "Then follow that, Amara. The world will find you." His words, rooted in his own sidelined jazz career, gave her clarity. She'd retreat to Asheville with him and Kayla to compose in peace. Meanwhile, Charles Whitaker, humiliated by Amara's triumph, stewed in his Georgetown apartment. The 50-year-old pianist's performance at the gala had been overshadowed, his sponsors pulling away after his failed sabotages. Desperate, he spread rumors online, claiming Amara's performance was a fluke, her duet with Jamal staged. "She's no prodigy," he posted anonymously on a music forum, his tone venomous. But the Amara Jones community, led by Sarah Nguyen and Lucas Hayes, fought back. Sarah's Twitter/X thread, fierce and fact-driven, debunked Charles's lies with gala footage, gaining thousands of retweets. "Amara's truth speaks louder," Lucas posted, his wheelchair-bound perspective resonating. Fans rallied, drowning out Charles's smear campaign, his credibility crumbling further. Back in Hartford, the Hart School at 200 Bloomfield Avenue buzzed with change. An anonymous donor, later revealed as a gala diplomat moved by Amara's music, funded the Amara Jones program, a scholarship for marginalized students. Maya Torres, the janitor who'd recorded Amara's audition, smiled at the news, her voice proud as she texted Amara, "You're changing this place, mija." Jamal Reed, now bolder, shared the news in a Hart hallway, his violin case slung over his shoulder. "She deserves this," he said firmly, his admiration for Amara unshaken by Charles's rumors. Even Ethan Prescott, the former bully, stayed silent, his mockery replaced by unease. Amara's decision to reject fame crystallized in a quiet D.C. park, where she sat with Kayla and Daniel. The scent of cherry blossoms mingled with her thoughts. "Asheville feels right," she said resolutely, her cane tapping the bench. "I need to find my music, not theirs." Kayla hugged her voice teasing but warm. "You're dragging me to the mountains, huh? Fine, but I'm bringing my speaker." Daniel chuckled, his eyes crinkling. "It's a good place to listen, Amara," he said gently, his own retreat there a testament. The trio planned their move, a small cabin awaiting them, funded by Amara's gala honorarium. Charles's rumors backfired spectacularly. A sponsor, once loyal, emailed him, their tone curt, "Your actions don't align with our values." His phone went silent, his influence fading. On Twitter/X, Sarah posted a clip of Amara's gala performance captioned, "This is no fluke." Amara Jones Lucas shared it, his followers, disabled artists, music fans, amplifying the love. The Hart School's board, pressured by public outcry, sidelined Charles, his board seat now shaky. He sat alone, his piano untouched, Amara's notes haunting him. In the hotel, Amara packed her few belongings, her flute, a braille notebook, her cane. Kayla folded Amara's navy gala dress, her voice soft. "You sure about this, sis?" she asked tenderly. Amara nodded, her resolve firm. "I need to make music for me," she said simply, her blindness no barrier to her vision. Daniel waited outside, his old jazz records packed for the road. The Blue Ridge Mountains promised silence, a canvas for Amara's next notes, away from fame's clamor. As their car pulled away from D.C., Amara felt the city's pulse fade, Asheville's quiet calling. Her music had sparked a movement, but her heart sought something deeper, a legacy not of fame, but of feeling. In Asheville, she'd answer letters from strangers, her scores reaching those who needed them most, a quiet influence that would ripple far beyond her sight. In a cozy cabin nestled in Asheville, North Carolina's Blue Ridge Mountains, Amara Jones sat at a worn piano, her fingers tracing a new melody under the soft hum of crickets. It was October 2025, months after the 15-year-old blind black girl rejected fame's glare for this quiet retreat. Her white cane rested against the wall, her mother's flute case nearby, as she composed scores for strangers who'd written to her, letters from the marginalized, each one a thread in her growing tapestry of impact. The cabin's pine-scented air felt like freedom, a stark contrast to Hartford's clamor or D.C.'s spotlight. With Daniel Brooks and Kayla Brown by her side, Amara was crafting a legacy not of stardom, but of connection. "Another letter, sis," Kayla said brightly, her braids swaying as she handed Amara a braille note. The 17-year-old foster sister had embraced mountain life, her speaker now playing soft jazz. "This one's from New Orleans, a guy in prison." Amara's fingers skimmed the dots, her voice soft. "He says music keeps him going," she murmured thoughtfully. "I'll send him a score." She began sketching a piano piece, its rhythm steady like a heartbeat, meant for a man she'd never meet. Daniel, 65, nodded from his rocking chair, his cane tapping. "That's your gift, Amara," he said warmly. "You give 'em hope." His own jazz past, silenced by prejudice, found echo in her quiet acts. Amara's influence rippled far. In New Orleans, Antoine Carter, a 30-year-old prisoner, received her score. At his parole hearing, he spoke of her music, his voice earnest. "Her notes made me believe I could start over," he said, clutching the braille sheet Amara had sent, transcribed by Kayla. The parole board, moved, granted his release, citing his rehabilitation. In Chicago, a cancer patient, Maria Gomez, played Amara's flute melody on a hospital keyboard, her frail hands finding strength. In Seattle, a deaf girl, Lily Chen, felt Amara's piano score through vibrations, her fingers dancing on a drum, her mother weeping at her joy. Lucas Hayes, the 35-year-old disabled musician, shared these stories on Twitter X with number Amara Jones Music, his posts uniting a global community of outcasts turned artists. Back in Hartford, the Hart School at 200 Bloomfield Avenue faced its past. Charles Whitaker, now 50 and retired, visited the campus, his silver hair thinner, his arrogance dulled. Seeking redemption, he offered to mentor students in the Amara Jones program, but his reputation preceded him. Jamal Reed, now 18 and a program leader, faced him in a rehearsal room, his violin case at his side. "You tried to break her," Jamal said firmly, his once shy voice steady. "We don't need your kind of teaching." Students nodded, their rejection final. Charles left, his shoulders slumped, Amara's shadow larger than his legacy. Maya Torres, watching from the hallway, texted Amara, "He's gone, mija. You won." In Los Angeles, the Grammy Foundation prepared for its Virtual Vision Awards ceremony. Amara, invited to perform, sent a pre-recorded flute piece from Asheville, its haunting notes a tribute to her mother. The foundation announced the award's renaming as the Amara Jones Honor, recognizing her impact on inclusion. Sarah Nguyen live-tweeted the event, her voice fierce. "Amara's music is a movement. Amara Jones Honor Lucas," watching from Seattle, wheeled closer to his screen, his eyes wet. "She's one of us," he posted proudly, his followers sharing clips of Amara's flute, now at 15 million views. The ceremony's host, a black vocalist, spoke of Amara's influence, her words resonant. "She turned silence into a symphony." In the cabin, Amara listened to the ceremony via Kayla's laptop, her fingers pausing on the piano. "They're saying my name," she said quietly, her blindness hiding her blush. Kayla hugged her, her voice teasing. "Get used to it, superstar," she laughed joyfully. Daniel leaned in, his tone gentle. "You didn't need their stage, Amara," he said softly. "You built your own." Amara smiled, her heart full. Her scores, mailed to prisons, hospitals, and schools, were her true performance, each note a bridge to someone unseen. Charles, back in his D.C. apartment, watched the Grammy stream alone. Amara's flute stirred a pang. His own music, once passionate, now felt hollow. He opened a drawer, finding a photo of his younger self at a piano, eyes alight. Her victory wasn't just her talent, it was her truth. He closed the laptop, his redemption still out of reach, her notes a mirror he couldn't face. Amara's influence grew, her cabin a hub of quiet creation. She answered more letters, her Braille typewriter clacking late into the night. Lucas's number Amara Jones music campaign spread her scores to Brazil, Nigeria, Japan, each recipient finding voice through her music. In Hartford, the Amara Jones program thrived, its students inspired by her story. Yet Amara remained in Asheville, her presence felt, not seen, her legacy poised to take root in a new Hart School wing, a testament to a girl who turned silence into song. The Hart School at 200 Bloomfield Avenue, West Hartford, Connecticut, buzzed with anticipation on a crisp spring morning in 2026. The Amara Wing, a sleek music center with tactile studios and open courtyards, stood ready for its grand opening, a monument to Amara Jones, the 15-year-old blind black girl whose music had reshaped the world. From her Asheville cabin, Amara remained unseen, her presence woven into every note played in the wing's sunlit halls. Her scores, sent to global communities, had sparked a movement, and today, the Hart School honored her legacy. The air carried hope, a far cry from the rejection Amara faced in these same halls years ago. Jamal Reed, now 19, stood at a podium in the Amara Wing's courtyard, his violin case at his side. The once shy black student, inspired by Amara's courage, led the Wing's first class. "This place is for everyone," he said confidently, his voice carrying over the crowd of students, faculty, and donors. "Amara showed us music doesn't need sight, just soul." Among the students was Sofia Alvarez, a 14-year-old Latina foster child, her fingers tracing a Braille score Amara had sent. Sofia's piano performance, a melody echoing Amara's Echoes of Silence, stunned the crowd, tying back to Amara's sabotaged Heart audition. Maya Torres, now a program coordinator, wiped tears, whispering, That's her spirit, mija. Across the globe, Amara's influence flourished. In Miami, a blind boy, Javier Ruiz, learned her piano scores via vibrations, his small hands mirroring her touch. His mother posted a video on Twitter X with hashtag Amara Jones music, captioned, "She gave my son a voice." In Lagos, a teen drummer used Amara's rhythms to teach orphans, their beats a chorus of resilience. Lucas Hayes, the 35-year-old disabled musician, shared these stories online, his Amara Jones music campaign now a global network. Sarah Nguyen retweeted Javier's video, her voice fierce. Amara's legacy lives in every note. Amara Jones honor. The posts trended, uniting strangers in Amara's silent symphony. In a quiet D.C. apartment, Charles Whitaker, now 51, sat at his piano, his arrogance humbled. The former Hart board member, rejected by students seeking his mentorship, had watched Amara's Grammy flute performance, her notes piercing his pride. Seeking atonement, he anonymously donated to the Amara Wing, his wealth-funding tactile keyboards. Alone, he opened a Braille score, Amara's, sent by a Hart student. His fingers, unsteady, played her melody, its simplicity shaming his past. "I was wrong," he murmured brokenly, the notes a confession. His atonement, private but profound, closed his arc. Amara's truth, his final teacher. Back at the Amara Wing, Daniel Brooks, 66, walked the courtyard, his cane tapping softly. The retired jazz pianist, Amara's mentor, smiled at Sophia's performance, his eyes wet. "She's still teaching us," he said warmly to Kayla Brown, now 18, who stood beside him. Kayla, Amara's foster sister, nodded, her braids swaying. "Sis never needed the spotlight," she said proudly, her phone buzzing with Amara Jones music notifications. She'd just mailed another of Amara's scores to a Chicago shelter, continuing their Asheville work. Daniel's hand rested on her shoulder, his voice steady. "Her music's louder than fame ever could be." The ceremony swelled with music, students playing Amara's scores in tactile studios designed for accessibility. Lila Carter, the 26-year-old stagehand, now a Hart technician, adjusted a studio's lighting, her quiet support echoing her Kennedy Center days. A donor, the gala diplomat, spoke, his voice earnest. "Amara's wing is inclusion in action." The crowd cheered, their applause a nod to the Amara Jones program, thriving with diverse talent. Ethan Prescott, once Amara's bully, watched silently, his presence a humbled footnote. In Asheville, Amara, now 16, sat at her piano, unaware of the Hart ceremony. Her fingers wove a new score for a Tokyo school, her Braille typewriter clacking nearby. Kayla had texted about the wing, but Amara only smiled, her voice soft. "It's theirs now," she said simply, her blindness no barrier to her vision. Her cabin, filled with letters from strangers, was her stage. Her music a gift that asked nothing in return. The Hart ceremony ended with a call to action, voiced by Jamal. "Amara turned silence into music," he said passionately, his eyes scanning the crowd. "What silence will you transform? Share your stories with hashtag Amara Jones. Music," the crowd murmured, inspired, as Sophia played Amara's melody again, its notes soaring over the courtyard. On Twitter/X, Lucas posted, "Join us. Make your music heard." Sarah's final tweet read, "Amara's wing is open. Let's fill it with song." Amara's presence lingered, unseen but felt, in every note, every story, every heart her music touched. From Hartford to Miami, from Lagos to Tokyo, her legacy was a chorus of voices once silenced, now singing. The Amara Wing stood as her monument, but her true impact was boundless, a melody that asked the world, "What silence have you turned into music?"